don't see anything, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Customary, I'll start with the chairman's remarks. Stand by just a moment.
And bang loud enough on the door.
Sorry about that.
Can't hear you, sorry.
Come on in, we just called the order.
So, Tom, I'm Pat. We haven't met in person. Marlene, I think we met at the annual meeting last year.
Yes, right.
And, so,
I'm still seeing you.
I saw that. Right?
I am,
Yes, there
but
we
I
go.
can fake being a tenor at some point.
All right, chairman's remarks. We all saw the email that came out that altered our agenda a bit for this meeting, so there is no need for a closed session for any reason. So we're still awaiting guidance from the OPA attorney about our next steps. And as soon as I hear back on that, I'll get in touch and we'll take whatever steps we need to take in order to get something in place on time.
You're referencing the election.
The election, yes. This is in terms of picking the vendor. I'm not sure, maybe I didn't understand your question.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, whether that was relating to the vendor or the actual election,
No, this is in terms of
the vendor.
picking the vendor to handle the voting. Seeing no one physically in attendance for public comments, move on to old business. And we have none.
I thought we had a guest.
We do have guests, but we don't take public comments off the
Gotcha.
teams,
Sorry.
following the model the board has put in place.
Okay,
Again, the old business has become moot now. So the new business for us is to go over the election timeline. And I couldn't read what that note said, so if it reappears, somebody can help me.
Stuart joined.
Stuart, okay, that must have been what it is.
You should allow public comment hybrid since you did not tell.
Okay. So I sent everybody out the election timeline. As we were just discussing, there was one correction. If you printed it early, the deadline for candidate applications actually is May the 12th. The 10th is a Saturday, and the resolution says that we roll that to the next business day. So we made that adjustment. The other dates are just best guesstimates, or best schedule, based on what we did last year and what the requirements are in resolutions and other such. So if anybody's had a chance to look it over, or want to take a few minutes now and do so to see if you think I got it right, or I can walk us through it as well. Yes, Marlene.
I have a question. That is it normally a 5-day time period between the deadline and the verification? Or in other words, if it's now the 12th, do we have to add,
No, good point.
be May 17th?
I don't know. I could defer to the board secretary, as he's the one who verifies that. John, can you speak to that?
I'm sorry, Steve. I said, I didn't hear the exact dates. I heard something about dates.
We've adjusted on our calendar the deadline for applications to May the 12th. And according to the original schedule, I have May 15th as the deadline for verifying candidate eligibility. Is that a correct date, or does that need to slide back a couple more days since we adjusted the date?
Yeah, I don't think it took more than a couple days. Steve, let me just confirm, to make sure we don't need to add. I don't think so.
Okay, well, it shouldn't impact anything if it does slip a couple of days, because the next, we will announce the eligible candidates after John verifies them. And then the next thing is to conduct a candidate draw. Okay? That's set, at least tentatively, for May 19th. That one may flex a bit depending on the availability of the candidates.
It's when they draw their order on
Yeah.
the ballot.
They draw their order, we go over all the campaign rules and guidelines and talk about signs and when they can go up and when they have to come down and things like that. We also ask them for the information we need for the ballot packages, which is also the next step of my new business there. Those, what's there under new business B that's the standard things we've asked for the past several years. Kind of generic questions that get included with the bios, and the information that goes in the ballot packet and typically goes out to the press in a press release so that folks can get to know who the candidates are.
Steve, where does the, and I want to say it's 200 max, where does that come in? Is that the combination? Is that just the statement, or is that the combination of the statement plus the answers? There is a 200 word max.
There is, I think it's for each question, but I'm not sure of that. I will have to go back and check
Yeah,
that.
I have to verify that, because I know there is a max 200.
Take a note.
I want to say 200 words. That isn't in 06 maybe.
It probably is
I
in
think
the
it
M06.
is.
That's
I think
where
it
I would go
is.
to check for it. I just don't have that, that detail memorized.
What?
While Cheryl's looking that up, if you don't mind,
No,
Go ahead.
no.
all right. The regular board meetings, the 24th of May. Our meeting would typically be the Monday afterwards. At that meeting, we'll be developing the handout and questions for the forum. If there are no objections, I would suggest that we follow the same similar model to what we did last year, where the committee will develop a set of questions. And we will also open it up to the community for it, if they want to propose any questions for the candidates.
Okay, here we are. It's in attachment A. Each candidate will provide a written information biographical statement not to exceed 200 words to be included in the voting package.
That's
That's not answers to the question.
No.
That's
the,
So we will have a similar limit on the length of the responses to the questions. But apparently M06 only addresses the bio statement. So anyway, are there any objections or discussion on following the same model for
Did
the
we-
form?
And again, I wasn't here when all this happened last year. The questions that came from the community, did we allow all of them, or did we only allow a certain number of them to be asked?
We didn't have a set number,
Mhm.
but we did as a committee meet and vet them to make sure that the questions are appropriate and
Okay,
not directed at an individual candidate or anything such as that.
okay.
The list was put together, and at the forum, we can structure the questions such that I think typically the first question was from the set that the committee selected, and subsequent rounds were drawn at random, a random number, and they got that question. So whatever number they picked is the community question that they got a chance to answer.
So we don't necessarily, unless it's deemed inappropriate, we don't cull that list down.
No, what the community has a right to be informed about what.
So if we get 100 questions and we determine all are all good questions,
But it's
we'll
still,
take the time to allow those questions to be asked.
no,
Oh, we
no,
won't.
we don't ask all the questions. I believe we have 3 rounds of questions typically. So that
Okay.
means each candidate's gonna get 3 questions, but the last 2 would be in your hypothetical, would be drawn from that list of.
Oh, I see. They're drawn from okay, got it.
And are you referencing the election telephone number? Is that what you're questioning about their questions?
No. I'm asking, Steve said that last year we had, the committee created some questions.
Mhm.
And then we opened it up to the community to submit questions. And I just wondered how we select from the community, because you'd be there for, days if you had
No,
all
no.
kinds of
We've
questions.
got a limited time frame, and we will actually be making decisions about how the forum operates
Okay.
at that meeting.
Okay, so basically you go into a drawing, there's a drawing for whether your question gets asked or not. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
so typically the first question would be one or a couple that the committee selects.
Mhm.
Probably, in the past, we've given the same question to each of the candidates to allow them to differentiate themselves.
Mhm.
But then we also want the community to have a chance to pose the questions they think are important.
And that would come by email, because I see here that we are supposed to establish a telephone number. But that is not for questions.
No.
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 Yeah, okay.
The telephone number is the voice, the elections number. I think that's what you're referring to. We already have that number.
Right, yeah, that's what I was looking at as far as that is not the questions.
No, we have a
Yeah,
standard.
that's just questions about the process.
Right, that's typically, questions about ballots that
Right.
weren't received or,
Mhm.
if there are objections to anything process-wise. And we'll talk about monitoring that as well when we get to that point. Moving on, the same day as our election committee meeting, the candidate bios, that date too might flex depending on what John tells us about the certification and the announcement of candidates. We want to give them the full amount of time to develop their statements and their answers to the questions. And the candidate forum tentatively scheduled for May 31st. That's a Friday at 6 p.m. We'll need all members of the committee there, please, both to help us check folks in. And we'll need someone to moderate, someone to keep the time limit on the responses, and someone to actually pose the question that the candidate chooses. So I'll be happy to moderate the forum as I did last year, but if someone else would like a turn doing that, certainly open to that as well.
That's in the 6 p.m. Okay.
Right. And that's just based on the normal time spread. I don't know that we have that date reserved in the clubhouse. The golf clubhouse where we usually have it, but
And is there a limit as to the end? It says 6, but so is it normally from 6 to 8 or?
6 to 8.
In the past, that was held in the acetate. So that you had more room for people to attend.
In
I
my,
can't remember.
in my experience last year, we did not overflow the golf clubhouse, but if you think
No,
it's
I
kind
was
of
just wondering why.
drawing a
why
line
change.
between, which one will be too full and which one will be too empty.
What are the capacities of each one? You know what the acetate room is in the clubhouse?
Well, the acetate room can
Probably.
hold 200.
I would say nominally it's twice the size of the
Okay,
clubhouse, but
100.
I don't know what the,
Right,
I don't know what
okay,
the
I'm
official
just
capacity.
wondering.
We do the annual meeting in the acetate room
Right.
because we hope for an abundance of people.
We do.
Um,
So I will check with Linda and she'll refer me to the appropriate people and see what the admin, unless somebody has strong feelings about having it in a bigger room or not so big.
Well, I'm just wondering about the clubhouses where people play golf and then go in and
Mhm.
get rowdy maybe.
Oh.
I mean, some
I think
beers.
it'll be,
No,
Enjoying
I think it'll
it,
be-
and-
they put up the wall, so we're,
Well, then that limits the number that you can have there
Right.
as well. So, I don't know, it's just something to think about,
okay.
whether or not you want it.
Let's see if I can get a recommendation from OPA and see what they suggest.
there's a bunch of things popping up in the chat. I don't know, but they last for about 3 seconds and we get it.
Okay.
Do we have to, do we need to look at the chat?
Well, you can look at it.
You can look at it, but we don't have to.
I can't actually see it that far.
Hey,
I can't read
Steve.
it.
I
Yes,
don't, I
sir.
don't mean to interject, but I'm not sure if you're getting the messages or not. But when you get a chance, can you suspend Robert's rules and allow public comments? We don't have a location. If I'm reading this right, and I'd look, there is no location. So whenever you get a chance,
All right, if that's what you'd like us to do.
There's no location.
that's what we need to do.
People couldn't come join the meeting because we did say it was in our usual spot.
Ah,
So in deference to that, all right. Then we will momentarily suspend our deliberations on the timeline and jump back up to public comments. Anyone wishing to make public comments?
well, you have to suspend.
Yes,
Yeah.
First.
I will suspend Robert's rules. There's no objection to allow public comments. Anyone wishing to make public comments, please turn your camera on and identify yourself and your address, and you're limited to 5 minutes.
We have to hit the,
Oh,
no, it's been muted.
No,
Well, I think we're not muting. I don't think we're muting.
who is asking to speak?
People are muted
Can you
themselves.
give me a quick note or? Okay, Amy. Let me see if
so
I
you
can.
have to unmute them.
There's,
Right.
I think she has to unmute herself. It says that she's muted.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, you'll have to unmute your microphone. I can't do that for you. You're not muted on my end. There you go.
Okay, it's
Oh,
on
there
now.
you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Amy Peck, 109 White Horse Road. My comment is that the meeting minutes and the agendas have not been posted in a timely fashion. Like this meeting, the location was not even posted. The public has a right to know what's going on in the committee meetings, especially transparency is important for the election committee. So I'm requesting that you please do a better job to make sure that the minutes and the agendas are posted in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to make a comment? Hearing none. Um,
That was for comment up there.
No, that's a message from,
Meeting is being recorded.
yeah, I think that's a message from Teams.
Oh, okay.
move that off there. All right.
Who is C?
I'm guessing it's,
So, but
it says
she
Sherry.
didn't, yeah, she didn't ask to make a comment,
Okay.
so please let me know if I'm missing something. All right, so as we left off, resume with the timeline. Our,
And we're restating Robert's rules.
yes, ma'am,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Keep me honest.
I've got Robert's rules written on my forehead.
All right, cool. The first batch of the eligible and ineligible lists, we plan to send to the contractor on the 13th or 14th of June. That's the initial list. That will be the list that they use to send a letter to those who are deemed ineligible to vote, informing them that they have another deadline with which to fix whatever is making them ineligible.
Okay, so Steve, the first part of this, provide initial eligible. That's a list that we get from admin, and you're saying the next thing, ineligible, will be a letter sent from.
We get two lists. That's what we get and what we provide to the contractor. The first list is those who are eligible to vote right now.
Right, and that's the first
And
part.
that's the list that the contractor will use to mail the initial ballot packets and or email the electronic versions. At the same time, they will also send a letter to another list of people who are being ineligible to vote.
Right,
Typically
so-
meaning their dues aren't paid or there's a CPI violation.
Right, that was my
sometime.
question. So the second part of this that you have here, where it says ineligible,
Mhm.
that's again, another list that's provided to us by admin. And from that list, we're asking the contractor to send letters that we will have drafted
Yes.
to these people, letting them know they're not eligible or they're
Right.
ineligible, right?
And
Okay.
and stating the timeframe they have to fix whatever's making them ineligible and to then be eligible to vote. Okay? So we plan that the notice of the annual meeting, the candidate bios, photos, questions, etc. They are planned to be sent out June 20th. And
So basically, a week after the list is generated, whether it be eligible or ineligible, that's when we want the vendor to be sending out the packet.
yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Now, a note about the packets, there was some questions raised in the community last year because the email package, the online voting package was received about a day ahead of the paper copy in the mail because they were both sent the same day. So we are planning to instruct the contractor to mail the paper copies or the paper ballots a day before they send the email version to try and make them arrive at the same time. But we're at the mercy of the postal service when they deliver things. All we can do is control when we send them. But we are attempting to address that concern. And we will, of course, include that in our press releases and other material, but folks don't always get that message.
So we mail and I may be jumping ahead, we mail the candidate information out to the masses the week before we actually send the ballots out. Am I
No.
reading that correctly?
No, that is the way you could interpret my list here, and I will adjust that. Everything goes out at the same time.
Thought so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I guess that date marks, whatever that date is, marks the beginning of the voting period.
Yes,
Or
it
the
does.
election period, or whatever the right term is.
Right.
And I guess just to note that last year, if you recall, the email did not initially have the bios with it. We had to catch up with that.
Right.
And we won't make that mistake again.
No, we shouldn't. Okay. So those, that June 25th date, which is, as Pat rightly said, is the start of voting, is required to be within a certain period of days ahead. And that is 45 days prior to the date the election closes.
Okay.
Okay, so 6:25 is the close.
No, 6:25 is when the materials go out.
Oh, okay.
Voting closes,
Voting closes on,
August 6th.
August
August
6th.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't see the page.
So you're saying, I'll trust that you did the math right, 6/25 to August to 8/6 is 45 days.
Yes,
And is 45 days our required amount of time that we have to allow for the voting? Or is there, flexibility.
According to my note here, the resolution says ballots will be mailed no sooner than 50 days before and no later than 15 days before the annual meeting. So 45 days puts us at we're well within the 50. So we're not sending them out too early.
So I can hold my question until later if you want to get through all these dates. But I have a question about that time frame
Okay.
as it relates to how close the deadline is to the annual meeting.
Yeah, let's hold that one.
That's fine, but I think it's at least, it's important to consider, and if nobody wants to change it, then that's.
We can discuss that.
Second Saturday is August the 9th.
Yes,
I'm looking
right
up.
now, the board of directors meeting is the annual membership meeting is scheduled for August 9th, this Saturday.
Okay, so continuing on, there's the regular board meeting on the 28th, our meeting on the 30th. Voter eligibility deadline is July 5. That is the deadline that when the second set of ballots for those who have recently become eligible to vote, when they would get their, well, that's when the deadline that OPA cuts it off. 2 days later, we're supposed to have that list to the contractor, and the new additional ballots will go out the 11th to the 12th.
As the new eligibility, people who've just purchased in Ocean Pines? Or
No,
It's people that have rectified their ineligibility.
just checking,
status.
because otherwise the old one went out, then it would be two
Could be
ballots
people who had CPI violations.
or
Right.
paid their dues.
They aren't up to date with their
Right.
dues.
Right.
Gotcha.
All right, we have a regular board meeting, the 26th of July, our meeting, the 28th. The issue that I think Pat was addressing is the next items up. We had asked that the board consider allowing us to take down the drop box in front of the police station. I think we asked for it like 5 days early on the Saturday before. The board expressed strong concern that we not do that.
What was the concern, that you take that down before the election closes? Or was it the concern that you ended the election 5 days early?
No, we did not end the election 5 days early. We only removed that box.
Right.
But
So I
that was still a
understand,
concern.
I understand the concern or the reason to object, taking the box away 5 days before the actual voting ends. That I wouldn't have asked the question that way, but I guess for consideration, if we're allowing enough time, and it sounds like we could do this we could make the timeline as short as 15 days.
Pat, I could tell you what I seeing and hearing the board adamants about not doing that. I have asked John to explore with the board simply moving the deadline for voting back 4 hours, essentially 4 hours. Instead of being the close of business on that day, be noon that day. That will give us time to collect the ballots and get them up to the shipping company without only having, a half an hour to spare and hoping the UPS driver or whoever we're shipping with, hoping they're not early.
Because we have to get them out to California or Oregon. Or
It's just Pittsburgh, but
That's true.
yes.
Pittsburgh, okay.
Well, it was Pittsburgh last year. We don't know yet where it will be.
Correct, it was Pittsburgh. But again, so have we explored just shifting the whole start and end by 5 days? Still allow 45 days.
I'm open to anything the board could consider, but I believe, John, help me out, that would require a change to MO6. I think it might require a change to MO6 no matter what we do.
We wanted to, I think there was some conversation about it this past Saturday of holding the line on, what's currently required. I think what I thought I heard you asking was, rather than it be 4 o'clock that Friday, would it be noon that Friday? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're saying?
It's Wednesday, it's not Friday.
Yeah, it is a
Or,
Wednesday.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't Friday, whatever that last day was, I'm sorry, it may not be a Friday.
Yes, I am less concerned about, us being able to handle the shipping and getting everything counted by the deadline. If we move it back till noon, I think Pat's suggesting, maybe just moving the whole election season a few days ahead. But they're both designed the same thing, to allow us to have, ample opportunity to get all the votes counted. I would hate to disenfranchise somebody because we missed a UPS shipment.
Yeah, no doubt.
So if, we'll have John take that back to the board and see how they want to.
Are you following my whole thought process here, John?
Yeah, I'm following you. I'm familiar with last year too, so.
But I guess I'm suggesting that the whole process shift a couple days earlier. We start 2 days early, end 2 days earlier than we do, give us a little bit more time to get the ballots to the vendor and get the count, make sure the count isn't a mad scramble at the end. That's all. Right now, it just feels like such a tight timeline at the very end. We ended on a Wednesday. We have to have the count done by a Friday so we can hold the meeting on a Saturday. It just seems tight, but I don't know the process to get.
And remember the
That-
resolutions and all were written when, in the paper ballot only era. And the votes were counted on site here. So with the addition of, it becomes moot again, if we were going local. But since that doesn't appear to be an option right at the moment, we just want to be sure that as the election committee, we count all the ballots that are cast.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and that's the goal of kind of why it's set up the way it is today.
So I guess what we're saying is, whether the whole voting period shifts 2 days, which is still in keeping with the no sooner than 50 days. We could do that and close it, but I think the MO6 does specify when the balloting ceases, and we'd have to adjust that.
Yeah, at this point, we need to stick with what we've have in front of us.
Well, then that would mean that voting closes at 4:30 on November, or on August, what is it, 6th? If we.
Yeah, I can take that back, but I think it's not for me just to sit here and tell you,
Oh, of course
change
not.
it, take 4 hours off of it.
All right,
We can
well,
have a discussion.
If you would, please take it back to the board
Yep.
that we need to allow enough time for us to do our job and make sure every vote gets count. However, you guys decide to change that time or that date, then, we just want to be sure we can get it done.
Okay.
Okay, just finishing this out, the annual membership meeting is the 9th. And then there's 2 September dates for me to draft a report and bring it back to you fine folks for you to chime in. And then we'll finalize that and send it in. Anything else on the timeline, or are we essentially good to go with what we've noted here and what we've asked John to check on for us? Anyone opposed?
Patrick is looking at my copy of MO6. I don't know if he has a question.
No, I'll just raise it another time if I find something. It's just been bugging me that we have this tight deadline at the end, that it's a mad scramble.
Yes,
And
it was.
why not just, take a look at that? And I'm trying to understand. I don't know all I don't know all of the regulations that we have established in our documentation to argue how to best tweak that.
Well, if the committee is okay with it, we did recommend several changes to MO6, some of which have been discussed and moved on past.
Mhm.
But if you're okay with it, I will resurrect that document, discuss it with John to take back
No,
to the board.
I could have done my homework in advance and been better prepared, so I don't want to hold the meeting up
All
for
right.
this.
Well, anyway, we've expressed our concern. I'm confident John will work with the board to see if they can give us a little breathing room in there to make sure that that all proceeds according to plan.
Now, I think there's a note that you have on this that was important, that we were asking to wait for the announcement.
Yes, we did. That was one of the recommended changes. John, I don't know how the board might feel about this, but there was some sentiment amongst the committee that we go back to not announcing the election results immediately, but holding that announcement as we used to do to the annual meeting. The reasoning for that is that it does give us more time to certify the results and develop and review the reports that come from the vendor. And also that it should spur attendance at the annual meeting and people who are interested in the outcome of the election, and thus making us better able to meet that quorum requirement of transacting the acceptance of the results without a special meeting. So,
Yeah, so you're suspending Robert's rules to ask me that question?
yes, I'll suspend Robert's rules to ask you that question.
So, look, a quorum is important to us. It's not the end of the world. I would rather there be a quorum every time, but what we've done is demonstrated that we show the count during, if folks want to visit that, live stream like we did last year, and results in holding them out for a couple days. For me, I don't agree with it. It can certainly be a question, but I don't think there's any interest in holding that out and waiting 2 days to tell people. Folks come to these meetings, they like to know. Now I know that this committee has to go back and put their fingerprint on it and report it out.
John?
I don't like that. I don't like the process. I don't like that at all. And I don't believe there's any support for it.
John, another consideration is that it is the responsibility of the elections committee to announce the results. And we have certain requirements about where that has to be done in our reporting. And we have to have time to prepare that press release to get it out. If we announce the results immediately, we don't have time to do our job and prepare that press release. And we have members of the press who immediately report the results before we've even had a chance to certify them, and certainly to do our job and put that word out.
I fully understand it, and I've watched elections for a number of years. I'll just tell you, there's no support for that, to take that back and hide that from our community that's actually looking and interested in seeing those results.
Nobody's suggesting hiding anything.
Well, maybe a bad choice of terms, but I'll just say it. Maybe I'll say it another way. There's no interest in that.
You're saying there's no interest in giving us sufficient time to verify the results?
You will verify the results as you do every year. Hiding or not displaying, whatever you want to say, the count that which we've done as long as I've been around. There's just no, I just don't see any interest in that.
John,
It's been 2 years.
we've only done it that way for 2 years. I would encourage you to discuss this further with the board. My concern is that if there were anything irregular or untoward, or if it was an exceptionally close election, and something turned up after the fact, by announcing it right there and having the press run with the unverified results does create an issue, a liability, and it doesn't allow us to do our job. So I
I
would,
recall the problem we had last year, Steve, MK announced that online. What's the right word? Precipitously before they should have.
they shared a screen,
It was a quick
Yeah.
share of a screen that
Yeah.
was inadvertent and unfortunate.
so
But
there,
there it was.
I'm reading the faces around here. I'll be happy to take a vote, but we have a strong feeling that, we're not trying to hide a single thing, but we're also not trying to have somebody run with unverified results, and then we have a public relations nightmare. So I would encourage you to take that back for us and discuss it with the board.
I'll absolutely take it back.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right,
Let me ask you a question. In your mind.
just a quick second.
We have the.
Let me reinstate Robert's rules.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have the timeline here. The August 8th, you have that ballot count and totals announced. Okay, that's an intractable date. That's the date. That can't be changed. Am I right?
No, anything can be changed. I'll have to go back and look and see whether
That's the question before.
I don't know whether that's a requirement in MO6 or if it's just been a recent tradition.
MO6.
Okay,
So-
the question I have is that, we're talking about, you were concerned about, rushing things and all of that. What I think of when you rush things is that you first of all look at the end date, your timeline. And then that's where we want to get, according to this timeline, we want to have the ballots counts and the totals announced by August 8th. Right.
That's correct. We have,
Okay,
they do a live count contract last year, and I have 1 year's worth of experience to state what happens, but last year they did a live count that they broadcast, they made available for folks to view. Anybody who wanted to view it could view it.
Which-
And then when that ended,
Yeah.
we were supposed to go away from that. The public could not have access, just the committee.
Right.
The committee had the opportunity to certify. And then after we certified,
Yeah.
then we announced to,
And the issue
The
is
board.
that essentially the contractor is announcing the results, not the elections committee. So, our process, most of us at that time, and certainly felt, should be that the contractor tells us the result of the votes. We've been monitoring the process. If there's anything that we see that's irregular or any reason to doubt those results, that we would then have the responsibility to verify the final count.
study it on.
We had asked, and we're asking here that we announce that at the annual meeting rather than on August 8th. So August 8th is the current date.
got it.
But I just want to be sure that we have a chance to manage any controversy, and that we don't have the election vendor announcing who won and then having the press go running wild with that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Steve, refresh my memory from last year where we had issues with whether or not we would accept a ballot because it wasn't marked correctly, or they tried to vote for too many people or whatever. Did we do that prior to the counting process?
No, that was part of the certification process.
Yes.
That was when, after the count was done, MK presented us with these anomalous
Okay.
ballots.
That was my
And that was
question.
part of our discussion. And I think if I remember, he had like 3 categories. A couple were really easy, and
Right.
then we had a tedious one where he had like 50 of them, I think, that we had to go through one by one and pass
And
judgment.
again, some of those changes in 06 were to add language because we had a few people who cut the barcode off the top of the ballot, thinking that we were somehow going to figure out how they voted. So they cut that off, but that is an adulteration of the vote.
Right, the patient.
So we added proposed language that would say if you cut or damage the ballot, we won't count it.
Right.
So,
So John, we will still probably want to address M06 for some of those issues, and I'll bring that up to you offline, and we'll resurrect that old document and see what we'd like to suggest you go forward with.
so am I hearing that we had a number of proposed changes? Are you saying they haven't been accepted, or they haven't been presented, or?
They were delivered to John and to the board, but no action has been taken yet.
Oh, okay, well, then, so I guess we have to go with the,
For now, we're operating under.
whatever the M06 was that didn't have those red lines.
Right.
This is in 06. Where your cutoff is.
Okay.
Wednesday before the annual meeting.
Okay, so M06 does say that
Yeah,
that the cutoff is that Wednesday before.
August the 6th.
yeah.
Does it have a time in there?
So you could theoretically cut everything off at 8 AM
Okay, so
and be
the
compliant.
committee will come back with recommendations on how we can
This is a closed
address
business,
that. I was under the impression it said close the
Regular
business.
business hours. So
Regular
prior
business
to
hours.
the end of association, regular business hours, which is,
Oh,
I think,
okay,
4:30 these
okay.
days.
Okay,
Say
so
prior to the regular business hours?
Prior to the
The
end
end.
of association, regular business hours on Wednesday.
Yeah, prior is a.
All right, so we'll address that amongst ourselves. I got the ACE legal team
You
on
could
that
even-
one.
even argue that that's 3 days before.
Anyway, the goal is just to make sure we can do our job and help the board explain whatever might happen and have the time to do it. The other item, is there any other discussion on this, on the timeline? Okay. The other information, other item is really just to see if the committee is comfortable with having the same information required of the candidates as we have in the past several years. This is the information that would go out with the ballots. It's what we call the ballot package. And that includes an introductory statement, kind of their bio, and the answer to 3 questions the rest of all of the candidates, which for the past several years have been, what will you bring to the office that differentiates you from other candidates? And 2, which amenity fees need rebalancing to increase participation from homeowners? What is your vision for the future of the community?
Those are the 3 that go out to each candidate and they have to provide written responses.
Right, and then they go out, and then those responses get printed in the press typically, and we include in the ballot
But the
package.
questions at the forum, the candidate forum are different.
Totally different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm really okay with 1 and 3. I'm not sure how I feel about 2. What does everybody else think?
You mean, I'm
What
sorry.
brings,
1 is the introductory statement.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's the max.
Okay.
So I'm okay with 2 and 4.
so 3 is,
Now, 3 is the one I'm
right,
kind of iffy about.
right.
I don't know that it's a big issue in the community right now, although one could argue that with the recent changes to racket sports fees, that it might be.
What was last year's, do you remember? Or was this last year's?
These are the same statement, same requirements for the past 2 years.
Right. Do you have a suggestion for a replacement question, or you want to think
Um,
about that?
I guess we have time.
We have time. If we're all agreed on 1, 2, and 4, we can take that kind of vote and share in an email or at our next meeting, proposed language for two.
Does it have to be three?
Does it-
Does it have to be three?
Oh, no, we can change it to.
I don't know,
two.
I'm just saying, I forget if there was something in, I don't, was there something in?
No,
info
I think
six?
it's just tradition. But I'll double check that.
Because I'm
later.
thinking about four. And what I have my mind about the replacement for three possibly is, you know, we have so much trouble getting people to respond to surveys. And maybe we could ask them about the recent community survey, some way to tie that to then what comes after that, what is your vision?
Right, because, I mean, that's why we have a communication committee now. Because we're trying to up that, what, you know, maybe something, some suggestions as to how would you, what suggestions do you have?
Or what is your opinion of the recent community survey that was conducted, and how would you have changed it to get more responses?
Right,
Something like that.
I'm okay with that. Would you mind? You guys, let's share.
Did somebody just write that down?
Give it to an AI.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's basically what I just said.
Yeah,
If you're
I think
okay
you're
with
right.
that.
Go ahead, just
If you could,
sketch it out.
Craft the words.
all right, so,
Yeah.
we're gonna substitute that for number three, what we negotiate out.
Yeah, because it then ties into
Mm-hmm,
four.
I'm okay with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it really is Mr. Viola's job.
Well,
Part of
It is,
managing,
except
part
that-
of managing the operation.
except the board is the governing body
Yeah,
and
I know.
that their vision controls what Viola has money to spend on. Certainly.
How much
What
was
is
the
your
weight?
opinion of the recent community survey? Did you
Increase responses.
increase response? Is that what I said?
I think that's what you said. Something
Yeah,
very
I was
similar.
just gonna say.
I'm not even sure what number three, I think I know what the import of it is, but which amenities need rebalancing, I'm not even sure what that means,
Right,
quite frankly.
well, that's why we're,
Between
I mean,
well, we're taking out-
members and non-members, the differences in what people
But it
pay.
doesn't say that.
No, but
That's less of, I feel it's less of an issue right now. But in terms of,
Dare we ask them how they feel about who leaves? No,
no, we dare not.
just kidding.
We dare not. They're a fire hazard. You learned that.
us Kevin Milton comes in. So,
Well, that was quite a.
All right,
Well,
is there
So
any,
that's our number.
any
three.
other topics we need to amend the agenda and discuss?
I guess I just. I appreciate that where we are in the cycle is maybe not the time to try and tweak that overall schedule to buy us a few more days at the end. But I guess the question would be, what is the process for, is that like a charging document to get them to consider an alternate timeline?
I will work with John. I think we might have done one in that we just need to
Yeah, but
resubmit,
I don't think we asked the way that I just articulated it. I think what we asked for was a few more, I think the way it was asked was to end the ballot box a little earlier than the electronic.
No, we actually submitted a whole set of recommended changes. I just don't.
Oh, I
remember.
know the MO6 changes, yeah.
I don't know whether we did that as a charging document or
Oh,
if it
okay.
was just circulated through John for board opinion. But I will follow up on that and check our notes
Okay,
and see, because clearly some of the changes we need would require an update to MO6.
and I don't think that the question of moving the entire end date earlier was in that.
No,
Questions.
I'm really, based on what Cheryl has quickly checked on in MO6, if it says prior to the close of business, then I think we can buy the 4 or even 6 hours, whatever the board is most
Mhm.
comfortable with. as long as we are diligent about communicating that, that is in fact, the deadline.
Okay.
So we'll, see how the board chooses to act. If there's no other business, our next meeting is planned for Monday, May 26th, same time, same location. Cheryl's now thoroughly checked out on operation of the Teams machine. So,
Now, don't blame that on me. You were observing as well.
but I'm less often here than you. It's physically